Hi, everyone. This is Mrs. Fletcher, and I thought that I should make a recording for those of you who have been absent to watch before you take your test on Fantine. Because in class, what we did is we talked for about 20 minutes to a half hour about this section before the students took the test. Mostly because I had been out the whole week before the test, and so we just had no time to really talk about the book. And so I asked students what they thought the best use of their time was, and they wanted to ask questions and focus on those things that were confusing. So that's the same thing that I will strive to do here for you, is to talk about things that might have been confusing that we hadn't already discussed in class when we very first started the book. So if you have your book with you, that's the best method to go through this, is for you to be looking at the book at the same time that I am. And I will refer to the pages, some of the pages that I'm using. Okay. So where I started in class was to talk about our main character, Jean Valjean. And some people are really bothered by the fact that as he goes through his life, in this first section, his name changes, and they find that to be confusing, but there are reasons for it. So when we first meet our main character, Jean Valjean, and he has been released from prison, he goes by that name, and we know that he comes to the town that is the D with the line, and he is looking for a place to stay. He meets the bishop. The bishop is kind to him. Jean Valjean still steals the silver from the bishop, and then the bishop gives him a second chance at life with this deal that he will be an honest man and he's no longer a criminal, and he is giving his life over to God at that point. So it's like the second chance, but it comes with this deal. Okay, so at that time, he's Jean Valjean. As soon as he leaves the bishop, he is on the road. He's a little bit in shock because he can't believe the bishop was so kind to him and allowed him to get away and not go back to prison after his theft in the bishop's home. And he comes upon Petit Gervais, the Savoyard, which is a chimney sweep, the little boy chimney sweep. And one of the questions that came up was, does Jean Valjean steal the little boy's coin on purpose? And we'll get back to Jean Valjean's name and what happens with that. But when he steals the chimney sweep's coin, that's around page 36. And it is a vague part. We have to really read carefully to figure out, did he do this on purpose? And so on page 36, towards the middle, on page 35, towards the bottom, the little boy is walking along. He's flipping his coins that he made that day through his job as a chimney sweep. Jean Valjean puts his foot on the coin that has rolled away from the little boy, puts his foot on top of it. On page 36, towards the middle, the child began to cry. Jean Valjean raised his head. He still kept his seat. His look was troubled. He looked upon the boy with an air of wonder, then reached out his hand toward his stick and exclaimed in a terrible voice, "Who is there? Ah, you are here yet?" And rising hastily to his feet without releasing the piece of money, he added, "You'd better take care of yourself," meaning, get out of here, right? Why is this kid still bothering me, yelling at me, crying in front of me? And so the little boy is crying and upset, and he runs away. And on page 37, towards the middle, it says, "At that instant, he," Jean Valjean, "perceived the 40-sou piece which his foot had half buried in the ground and which glistened among the pebbles. It was like an electric shock. 'What is that?' said he between his teeth." And so he's surprised to see the coin there. And then very soon after, he yells after the little boy, Petit Gervais, come back. I have your coin." And then he looks at himself. And this is an important part of the book, because this is when, on page 38, Jean Valjean says, "What a wretch I am." He looks at himself and his life, and he realizes that he truly is a thief and a criminal, and he would steal from a child. And he is just distraught by that thought. And so he has this revelation, this epiphany at this point, that he sees himself for who he truly is, and he wants to change. So when we read those parts, I think it becomes apparent that he did not steal the coin on purpose, but maybe it was just more a reaction or an instinct to get his own, right? It was the same as when he stood in the bishop's room and he really looked at the bishop for a long time. It's a fairly long scene. When he's looking at the bishop, he's thinking about what a kind and good person he is and how innocent and noble he looks. And then he steals his silver anyway. And so I think at the beginning of the book, we see this man, Jean Valjean, as a thief and a man who's been a criminal and who has been treated terribly in the galleys and done all this hard labor. And then we see this point at which he's going to change. So our writer, Hugo, loves coincidence, and you're going to see coincidence throughout this book. So some time passes after that scene. And when we pick up with our character again, we meet Fantine. And so there's some time we meet Fantine. But when we pick up with our main character again, he has a new name and he's living in a new place, M. Sur M. And M. Sur M happens to be Fantine's hometown. And his name when he gets there, and time has passed, is Monsieur Madeleine. But because he has become such a hero to this town, the people say to him, "Why don't you become our mayor?" And he doesn't want to, right? He's trying to fly under the radar because he's not living the same life he used to, and he's not trying to be the same person he was. He's kind of living in hiding out in the open. And so he does not want to be the mayor. But eventually they talk him into it because they say, "You could do so much good for the people if you were in charge of this town." So finally he says, "Yes, I will be the mayor." So then they start to call him Monsieur le Maire, meaning Mr. Mayor. And they also sometimes refer to him as Father Madeleine because he is like a father to this town. When he first came into this town, there was a house on fire and he ran in and saved the children there. So he's immediately a hero to the town. And then he builds up this factory. And the factory that he creates is one that makes a specific kind of jewelry. And he's figured out how to do a clasp that is better than it's ever been. So with that innovation, he makes a lot of money. So he employs basically everyone in the town at this factory. And he also gives a lot of money away. And so he's on his journey to be an honest man and to give back and be a good person. And so he becomes this new person, Monsieur Madeleine, or Monsieur the Mayor. Okay. So in coincidence, in this book, Fantine also comes to this town. It's her hometown. And so we meet Fantine. We know she has this daughter, Cosette, that she's had out of wedlock. She fell in love with a man. She thought they were going to be together. He made her all kinds of promises. She became pregnant and had Cosette, and the man leaves. And so that's the end of the love affair. And in this time and place, she was shunned because she had a child out of wedlock, and she had to keep that a secret. And so we see that she puts Cosette with a family, the Thénardiers, and you should know who they are. Okay. And then she goes to work in Monsieur Madeleine's factory. So now they're connected, right? Know that Fantine is beautiful. And even though she's had a hard life, she has had a rough upbringing and then this love affair. She is a beautiful woman. And so when she goes to work in the factory, the women who are working with her are very jealous. And they look for ways to get rid of her, to get her out of her job. Well, Fantine is illiterate, like many people in France were at that time. She can't read or write. And so there were people who were letter writers. That was their profession because there were many people who couldn't write. So you would go to the letter writer, you'd pay them, they would write a letter for you and send it. And this is how she communicated back and forth with the Thénardiers about her daughter and what was happening with her daughter. So the women in the factory were jealous and wanted to get rid of Fantine. And so they got the letter writer to talk to them. And he told them everything. And then with that information, eventually the women were able to get Fantine fired, and that leads to the demise in her life. And you should know what happens in Fantine's life. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of that. Okay, so know about Cosette, this little girl, right? And how she's treated by these really horrible people. That's how Hugo depicts the Thénardiers. They take advantage of Fantine. Um, they're basically exploiting her for all the money they can possibly get out of her. And they treat Cosette terribly. There's a line in the book that talks about how she has to eat under the table. She doesn't get new clothes, even though they say that they're buying her new clothes. I think it says she's treated a little worse than the dog and a little better than the cat, something like that. But essentially, she is treated like a slave in this house. So it's not a good life for her. So that's where Cosette is at this point. So the next coincidence is that Javert, Inspector Javert, also comes to M sur M, where Fantine and Monsieur Madeleine are. And Javert was in the galleys. He was a prison guard in the galleys with Jean Valjean. Now, Jean Valjean has some distinctive characteristics about his physical person that are important now and then throughout the book. So one is that by the time he becomes Monsieur Madeleine, he has white hair. And so that's a pretty distinguishing characteristic. He also is a very strong man. And it's said that when he was in the galleys, he was as strong as 4 men. And he has the ability to scale buildings, to climb up the side of a building. And it says he can climb 3 stories high. Now, he's not like a superhero. It just says when the men in the galleys had any time of their own in order to just pass time, they would try to like grab the bricks of the walls and see how high they could climb, like they're rock climbing, right? And he happened to be very good at it. He could really shear these walls or scale these walls. So that's one of the ways that he escaped over and over again. So remember those things. So Javert is assigned to M sur M, to this town. And Javert is an interesting character in that he was born in a prison. So his mom was a criminal and she was in a prison, and so was his father. And as we kind of see in modern day, someone who has a rough childhood, whatever that is, whether that's abuse or it's alcoholism or whatever's going on in that home that makes it a rough childhood, we see some people who take those circumstances and then as they grow up, they continue to live that way. And then we see other people who live in those circumstances as a child and they say, I'm not going to live this way. I'm going to completely flip my life and be totally different than how I was brought up. And that's how Javert is. So he comes out of a criminal past with his parents, but he makes it his life's mission to uphold the law. And that's why he becomes a member of law enforcement. And he has a very black and white view of the world. Either you're a criminal and you're a bad person, or you're a good person. And there's nothing in between. And if you ever commit a crime, you are shifted over to the criminal side. So keep that in mind about him. There's no wiggle room with this person. So he is, he's the law now. And remember that Monsieur Madeleine is the mayor. And so that's his boss. So the scene where Javert figures out that Monsieur Madeleine is really Jean Valjean is this wagon scene in the street when a man named Father Fauchelevent, this old man, is trapped under a wagon and it's sinking in the mud and he can't get out and no one can get him out. And so Jean Valjean asks people to help and no one is doing anything and the man is really in trouble. So Jean Valjean gets down and lifts the wagon off of Father Fauchelevent. And in that moment, Javert kind of, he was suspicious that the mayor was Jean Valjean, because of course it's the same person. But time has passed and Monsieur Madeleine dresses nicely. He's a mayor. He does so many good things in this town that he doesn't think it's the same person necessarily. He's not sure. And so when he sees Monsieur Madeleine lift this wagon, that's when it clicks in his mind and he thinks, you are Jean Valjean. And so he's out to get him now. And people will say, well, why would he need, what has Jean Valjean done wrong since he's been out of prison? Well, there are three things. One is, and this comes into play when he goes to court too, which is coming up. One is that he stole from that little boy. And I'm sure that little boy, Petit Cheval, ran home and told his parents and told everybody, this guy in the street stole my money, right? And the second is he is impersonating. He's pretending to be someone else. This is a made-up identity, and that was against the law. Thirdly, remember that in this time, when a prisoner was released, they had to show their yellow passport in every town that they came to. They had to go to the authorities and show their passport. And he's not doing that. He's sneaking around as someone else. So these are the reasons why Javert would be able to put him back in prison if he could in fact prove that this was Jean Valjean. So they're all connected now, right? And Javert comes to Jean Valjean one day, or to Monsieur Madeleine, and says, you need to fire me right now, right here, because I went to Paris and I denounced you. That means that I said bad things about you, or I tried to ruin your reputation. I accused you of being Jean Valjean. But you should fire me because now I found out I was wrong. And the reason Javert thinks he's wrong is because in a different town, a man has been accused of a crime, and these convicts stood up and said, oh, that's Jean Valjean. That's who committed that crime. It's not, of course. We know where Jean Valjean is. The man in the other town, his name is Champmathieu, and he is, he's not educated. We'll see that in the courtroom scene. And he says that he just picked up some apples in the road. Now, the authorities say, no, you went in this farmer's field and stole apples. And we know through Jean Valjean's original crime of stealing bread, apparently to be a thief in France was a really big deal, and it was going to get you sent to prison, even if it was just an apple. And so that's what that trial is about. And these three convicts have stood up in that other town and said, that man is Jean Valjean. Now, why would they do that? Probably for the same reasons that anyone would throw someone under the bus, even in this day and age. Maybe they would get better living conditions. Maybe their sentences would have been shortened. Maybe they truly believed that that was Jean Valjean, a man they had been in the galleys with. In any case, Javert comes to Monsieur Madeleine and says, you need to fire me. I said bad things about you. It can't be true because the real Jean Valjean is in this other town. So this starts a huge dilemma for our main character, an internal conflict, and it goes through many pages, as you found out. And I personally think that it goes through many pages because Hugo wants us to understand how long it took Jean Valjean to figure out what to do. So there's a dilemma. If he goes to this other town and admits that he's Jean Valjean, not only will he go back to prison, but everyone who he's supporting in M sur M is now in jeopardy, right? He's rescued Fantine. Fantine eventually became a prostitute and got in a conflict in the streets, and she was supposed to go to prison. And Jean Valjean stepped in, Monsieur Madeleine stepped in and said, no, I'm going to take care of her. So he's taking care of Fantine, and she's very sick. He is employing all these people in the factory, and he's essentially supporting this town. So if he goes and tells the truth that he's really Jean Valjean, all these people are going to be in jeopardy, and he'll have to go back to prison, which he doesn't want to do. If he doesn't go tell the truth and he lets Champmathieu, this other man, take the fall, then he's going against everything he's trying to become as a person. He's supposed to be an honest, good man now. Well, an honest, good man doesn't let someone else go to prison for life under a false identity because of a mistake. So he goes through pages and pages of what should I do, right? And then he eventually makes a decision and goes to court. So one of the things that the students brought up that was confusing was Fantine's death and what happens to Fantine. And I'm not talking you through this whole section because you have read it. I'm just pulling up the things that might be confusing. So understand why Fantine died and what the death scene is about. So after Jean Valjean goes to court and admits to everyone who he is, he's so well known and he's so trusted and revered that the authorities actually just let him walk out of the courthouse and go back to M. Sur M, where Fantine is essentially on her deathbed. And Fantine is dying because she has a growth, a lump in her chest. And that's explained to us early on when we meet her. And it says that at one time she went to a doctor, but if you think about this time and the fact that she's never had very much money, basically the doctor said, yes, you have, what do they call it? A ball. You have a ball in your chest, and that makes you cough. And that's about all they say. They don't have a solution for her. And so that is what is killing her. It's probably cancer. That's probably what we would say. And the scene is a little confusing because what happens is Jean Valjean comes back, right? He's lied to her and told her that he has brought Cosette to her, and Cosette's not really there. And then Javert comes storming in the room to arrest Jean Valjean, right? And this is great for Javert because everything he believes is now reinforced. This really is Jean Valjean. He wasn't wrong the whole time. Bad people stay bad, good people stay good. Everything is reconciled in his mind. So he's very victorious in this scene when he's coming to arrest Jean Valjean. But if you remember, in that conflict in the streets, Javert is the one who tried to put Fantine in prison, and he had absolutely no mercy for her. She's begging him to let her go. She has a daughter who she has to support. What's going to happen to her daughter? And he sides with the man in the street who harassed her and doesn't listen to Fantine. So to Fantine, she is very frightened of Javert. So when he walks in and he's ready to arrest her savior, essentially, Jean Valjean, and she's not going to get to see Cosette, all those things come together. But understand the reason she's dying is because of this disease that she has. So in that moment, she dies, she falls back, she hits her head on the bed, and then she's dead. And a lot of students get confused by that part and think she hit her head and that's why she died, and that's not the case. So understand that scene. All right. Let's see what else. You should know what happens in the courtroom. You should know how it comes about that Jean Valjean admits that he is himself. There's a very specific way that he proves that, so you should know that. There is some question in that last scene with Cosette or with Fantine if Jean Valjean has done the right thing by telling Fantine that her daughter is there. Was that the right thing to do or was it not? Of course, he's trying to make her calm down and make her last moments better, but he hasn't had time to go get Cosette. So when she finds out that her daughter truly isn't there, that's a great disappointment, and that also leads to this last stressful scene. Okay. There is some important language on the very last page that you were supposed to read, page 134. And it's about Fantine. And it's the last paragraph. And it says that Fantine was buried in the common grave of the cemetery, which is for everybody and for all, and in which the poor are lost. So there's definitely a message to be found in the character of Fantine. You might think about what are we supposed to be learning from this character, both in the way that she acts, the choices she makes, and the way that she is treated by society. And that last part about where her eventual resting place is, that she's in a common grave, which means people were buried together and no one has a gravestone and they're just anonymous. And it says, this is the place where the poor are lost. And so poor people and poor women and women who had children and no husbands were treated in a specific way. And that's one of the things that Fantine is supposed to teach us. So keep that in mind. Know this character of Fantine and how is she significant. Okay, I think that's about it. And I think those are the things that we talked about in class before students took the test. The test is 20 questions on the reading and then one written response that is also worth 20 points. And it'll be one big fat paragraph that you will write. You will not have your book or your notes when you're taking the test. So some of my students were up in arms and said, well, then why am I taking notes? You're taking notes so that you don't have to reread hundreds of pages of the text, so that you can remember what is important and where to find it. And in future tests, if I want you to find specific evidence, you will use your book and you will use your notes. For now, it's just a tool to help you remember. But on this particular written portion, if you need to put in specific evidence, you're just going to be using examples. You'll just recall examples from the book and put those in your writing, but you won't be quoting directly from the book. All right. So if you still have questions, if there are any discussion questions you can't answer, we should definitely talk before you start your test. If you're able to come during a flex time, the test takes between 30 minutes and an hour. That's what I saw from my classes this week. And so it just depends on how fast you go, how well you know the book probably, and how fast you can put together your written response. But you'll need 30 minutes to an hour to do it. So we can definitely find a time to make that work for you. All right. Thank you.